Hey Darren, welcome to
Hey,
my
Dino.
podcast.
Yeah, good to see you.
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate you being here and thank you for your time.
I'm
How's it
excited,
going?
man. Let's have some fun. I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
That's good, man. Interesting last year and this year. I mean, how you feel about all of this?
Oh, I think there's some highs and some lows. I think, when you look at the way track and field is right now, it's tough, and the way athletics in general is it's tough. There's a lot of athletes and coaches from the Olympic level all the way down to the collegiate and high school level that it's just there's a lot of uncertainty. So, but there are also some people that are really taking advantage of this time where they can focus on their craft. Whether that be athletics or music or writing or um, anything. I mean, I one thing that I think it has done is it's given us an opportunity to step back and reflect a little bit, and just kind of say, okay, why are we doing what we're doing? And that's maybe renewed some passions in certain things, and I think we're gonna come out of this, although it's very tough and devastating for a lot of people, and as far as health and a lot of people have been lost, but I do think we can come on out on the other side of this thing with maybe a renewed and clearer vision. So I kind of look at it in two ways, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point because when you look at what's going on in the world, there is not much that we can do. There's nothing specifically you can, hey, I have a solution for this. If you're doing maybe some type of biology or you're deep in research of finding the cure and then you find it, maybe, yeah, that's something that definitely you can maybe affect the change. But people who are not in field of medicine and people who are not in field of biology, we can't necessarily help it. We can just, follow the rules and, do the things that make sense and that we're supposed to do. But like you said, it opens a door for people who are lucky enough to not catch the virus and have a serious consequences or not have a financial loss or not having different difficulties that the virus bring. Those people can thrive in other things. So I think that's a great point. But you mentioned track and field and music, and you are a head coach of University Rio Grande Valley, Texas Rio Grande Valley. You've been there for quite some time, and before that, you were also a head coach at the different university. But you also do music. So I think this is something that I really want to know is, what came first? Like what started first?
Gosh, I mean, if we really, really go back, I mean, as I reflect on my life, athletics and music have always been two things that have been connected and intertwined from a very young age. And I've always been very passionate about music, and in particular, like old school soul and R&B type music. That's kind of what I grew up on and what I really gravitated towards. But at the same time, I had a really, really deep passion for athletics. I played multiple different sports. I played football, I played basketball, I ran track. I did it all. And I think really what it comes down to as I look back on it is just an opportunity to express who I am, whether it be in music, whether it be on the track. It's a statement for me, and it's an avenue and an outlet for me to express my true nature as a human being. I wake up every day. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that I'm taking breaths. And, I just feel like the best way to glorify my existence is to push myself in certain areas. And I've been blessed to have some of these gifts and talents where I can explore those things. It's just similar to you. I mean, with you as a decathlete, and you've been able to use your gifts and really express who you are through those gifts. And I think that's really where it all starts. And they've just kind of been there all along. Now, as you get older, obviously, athletics becomes less of an option. I mean, I'm not saying you still can't be active, as you can, but for me, music is something that has really just continued to grow, and something that I've continued to develop and grow and learn and find new and great opportunities as I've gotten older. Um, so yeah, it's really hard to say, the chicken or the egg. I don't know which came first, but they've always kind of been there.
Yeah, but I always have this question: is when you were younger, what actually I want to ask you, what was the age when you realized, damn, I can sing, like I sound okay.
Uh,
You know what I mean?
yeah, I think I remember distinctly, and my brothers are very musically inclined as well. We would sit in front of the TV and watch the California Raisins. I don't know if you're familiar with the California Raisins, but there was a old
Mm-hmm.
commercial with the California Raisins. They'd be singing, they'd be dancing, and they had this like claymation feature and this basically like show, right? And we'd sit around the TV and just memorize these songs, and we would just be belting these songs out and singing them with such passion and soul. And at that point, I was like, man, I love this. Like, I love doing this, and I can do it. Like, I have the ability to do it. And this is probably, anywhere from 8 to 10 years old, something like that.
Okay.
And so yeah, I just continue to chase it, not in any kind of like serious form. It's really not until high school when I said, okay, I am going to get in choir. Right? I had a friend that was an athlete alongside myself, and he was a good friend. And he was like, "Hey, I'm going to get in choir. You want to join?" I was like, "You know what? I am. I'm actually going to like take this seriously and try to do something with it." So I got in choir. I was still in athletics. So it was quite a balance. There was practice outside of school for choir. There was practice outside of school for athletics. So my plate was really, really full at that time. Um, but yeah, that's kind of when I started to learn like, hey, I could do this.
Okay. That's interesting because, I'm one of those people that I go to the bathroom, right? And I go in a shower and I start singing and I can hear it. It's not good. Like I know it's not good.
That's okay, man. If you're loving it, it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, so I was always like, and then competitiveness in me always says, okay, let's try it. Let's keep it. Let's try it. I mean, you can hear it that it's not good. There is a way that you can make it good. Man, I feel like the only times that it make it good is accident. Like something happens in my throat that connects two things, just happens, and then you sound for a second like, oh my God, like that was good. Let me do it again, and then it doesn't work. It doesn't happen again. So I was always interested, like when you're young and you start singing, do you realize in that moment, oh my God, like I sound good, or is it more like people coming to you and letting you know, hey man, like you sound really good. It's really nice to listening to you.
Well, I've always been interested in creating and being artistic, and I always felt like I was decent. I mean, if I honestly went back and listened to myself in high school, and uh, I would probably say I was okay. Like I probably wasn't that good, to be
Yeah.
honest. Um, I would say, over time, I've really, and it's just like athletics, and being a coach has given me a completely different perspective on approaching music. Um, the people that are truly doing this well and mastering this craft approach it like an Olympian would
Hmm.
any event. And there are certain things that looks easy and looks like extreme talent that actually there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go behind that and working it. And um, I mean, I can tell you like my ability at the guitar has accelerated tremendously over the last year. And it's simply because I enrolled in an online seminar. I can take as many of these online guitar classes as I want. And I would literally sit over the summer and probably play the guitar anywhere from 5 to 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
Um, and you start to hear different things, you start to discover more things as you get more and more into it. And it's just like athletics, if you put the time in and really focus on your craft and really start focusing on the details, even in singing. I mean, there's so many things that I didn't know you could do with breathing and the strength of your diaphragm and using your chest voice opposed to your head voice. And there's just so many different things that you learn. And I'm still working at it, and still trying to get better at it. Um, and I always will be. And because, that's what I've been taught to do. That's what I teach in track and field, to always be finding ways to get better. And so I approach it the same way.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to go because majority of people want to do certain things in their life. Like for example, people want to become a musicians and they do have a certain talent, but they think that just by working a certain amount of hours, that's enough for them to become successful. So the things that I always question is what is actually that uncomfortable zone, what is the comfortable zone, and what is the uncomfortable one. Because if you're in a situation where you're putting 3 hours a day, and for yourself in your own perspective that's really really hard, you think that you are out of your comfort zone. You think like, oh my god, this is so uncomfortable for me. But in reality, there is 6 more hours left. For example, just giving a simple example, there's 6 more hours left that you use it for the things that are not focused on becoming better in your craft. So to me, that means that you're not in a uncomfortable zone. You're actually being very comfortable. You are, basically quitting when you think that it's enough, when you think that you're tired. So I think that's something that really interests me when it comes to music because I never been part of such an industry. And I think that you're a great example because we can almost say that you are starting right now, and you're in the beginning. And I
It's a
think
new
that's
start. Yeah.
and that's the hardest part. So it's easy to talk to somebody who is already famous and he can tell you, hey, you gotta grind, you gotta do all of this, da 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 da, and you're gonna become, successful. But it's a different perspective where there is, you are here and you're just on the beginning. So I would like to know, like, what is your thoughts on that comfortable and uncomfortable, situation through this process in the beginning?
So I think this is really, there's a lot to unpack here because with my history, I actually started in music when I was in my early 20s. So we're looking at almost 18 years ago. Is where my journey really started, and I started to like put myself out there and start playing open mics and started writing, and that in itself is a challenge. I mean, putting yourself out there is something. There's something so much more intimate about it than say like going out there and performing in athletics. I think obviously there's artistic performances in athletics, but when it's your heart and soul coming out and like really truly deeply personal things that you're expressing and wondering if that's going to resonate with other people, man, that can be intimidating. It can be really intimidating, and you hope that it connects, and you just never know. Sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it does. But yeah, as far as the amount of work that you're putting into it, and the balance that you try to strike, to get the most out of yourself, but also not burn yourself out, I think is always a fine line. But I did learn a lot early in my career, and I mean, I would say that maybe I got to a place of burnout, and I don't think my approach was probably what it needed to be. I think now, being older and more mature and not in such a rush to get somewhere, I understand that the journey is a huge part, and that I need to appreciate the journey. I need to appreciate going through the process, and I've been fortunate to see people in the industry and been able to like record with them and perform with them, and this was early on in my career, and just to see, and they're still in it. They've been in it for a long time. I stepped away
Yeah.
for a long time to pursue coaching in track and field, and just to see their longevity and to see that they just, I mean, some of them have fallen to the wayside and probably hit that burnout spot as well. But I've also seen some be really successful and just enjoy the process. I've been in some forums lately with musicians and producers and A&R people from record labels and things like that. And you hear them talk a lot now about just, enjoy where you're at, enjoy where you're at, keep grinding, enjoy where you're at. But just really my focus now is I just want to focus on my craft, and I just want to connect with as many people as I can and whatever happens, happens. There's no real destination. There's no real island that I want to get to that I'm going to say, oh man, I made it. Right.
Yeah.
Um, it's just a more focus on the craft and focus on the connection and really try to lift each other up in this whole process, whether it be people in the industry or people that listen to your music and connect with it. Man, that's what it's about. And wherever that takes me is where it takes me. I just want to try to enjoy the process, and I constantly have to remind myself of that. Otherwise, I'm gonna have my foot on the gas, 100 miles an hour, and I'm gonna get burned out. And
Yeah.
so I think there's really a delicate balance there.
That's interesting because one thing that really interests me is how does it look when you're in this situation? Like, what are the things that you're doing right now to trying to put yourself out there? What are those tools that you're using and they are available to you in this certain situation? I can imagine that, the better you become, you will have more tools and you're going to have more resources and availability and time, which is the most important thing. But like, how does it look right now? I mean, you are a head coach. For people who don't understand, being a head coach, in my opinion, is not 8 to 5 job. And any coach, any mentor, any professor, choose a life not from 8 to 5. That's a 24/7 lifestyle. You just have to do it. But then music is also 24/7 because your emotions wake up at 2 a.m., your emotions wake up at 5 a.m., you go to a practice and idea comes to your mind, but now you can't do anything because you are committed to already, doing something for the kids that are expecting you to be there. And there's so much expectations in such a strong career as being a coach, because a lot of people's life on the end of the day depends on you. Like, you're a mentor, you're a teacher, you're everything in once. People look at you like a second parent. So you have that part, and then you have a music where you completely have to be yourself. You got to open yourself up, you got to let go things. And then how do you balance that, and how do you find the tools to push through the music? You know what I mean?
I do. I think that's a great question. I mean, I think that is a great question because my situation is so unique, and being a head coach and being basically in charge of the livelihood, growth, and development of young people. And you're right; it's a 24/7 job. I mean, you're switched on all the time, and but what I find is it's a great balance. If I can take time to step away from music and spend time with the kids at practice, or just help them get through something in their day, like, it really gives me better perspective coming back to music, and vice versa. Music is a great release when you, especially in this time when there's so much uncertainty with our sport and what's going on, like, just to be able to step into the musical world and be able to kind of offload all of that other stuff. It's really helped me. It's been therapeutic. And it's helped me to connect with other people outside of the track and field world that have a completely different perspective. And so, yeah, it's been helpful. But as far as time, time is our most valuable asset. And I really have to strike a delicate balance with my time because, I also have a family, and, they're incredibly supportive. Like, they believe that I can do this music thing, which is really cool, because a lot of times, especially, when you're talking about, providing for a family, it's something that can be frowned upon because it's such a hard road in the music industry. But now there's so many other avenues to get your music out there. There's so many, like, at our fingertips, we have what maybe not every, but most major labels have, and have had. I mean, everything has moved digitally. Everything has jumped forward about 5 years in advance. And now independent artists have everything they need at their fingertips. I can distribute music. I can connect with radio stations. I can connect with all these different people online from around the world, and really establish a pretty solid fan base and make great connections in the industry. So I'm doing some things there just to, and I'm using maybe some old connections that I had back when I first started, and just kind of rekindling those fires, which is good. But as far as the balancing act of time, it's very difficult. Obviously, with track and field, we're not traveling as much. We've had at this point, we've had 3 seasons canceled. We've had outdoor, cross country, and indoor. Our indoor championships were canceled this year. So I'm really hoping that we can have this outdoor season in some capacity. I think it would be great, but still the travel is going to be less, and
Yeah.
I'm not used to that. I'm not used to that. It's been, 13 straight years of just being on the road all the time, all year round. And even in Christmas break, we were going to conventions, and in the summer there's conventions and meetings. And
Yeah.
so like, I've found a little bit more time on my hands, to say to, come and do this podcast with you, and
Yeah.
just things like that. It's been really interesting. So, but I get up very early, sometimes 4 o'clock, sometimes 5 o'clock, and I'll go in there and work on some material that I may have. And I make sure that I take good notes. I take a lot of notes. I even record a lot of stuff for video and audio, just so I keep the ideas in my head.
Yeah.
And then I'll step off and go to practice and take care of my work stuff, and any recruiting that needs to get done, and then come back to music when I have some time. And but I
Yeah.
think it's really important to keep notes, even when you're in any craft and trying to master any craft. Like, I always have a notebook,
Yeah.
and I'm always writing down ideas. And I think anybody that's successful at anything they do should be carrying around a notebook all the time and be writing their ideas down. Maybe even writing, hey, like, don't do this again. This was a horrible idea. And that way, you're not making some of the same mistakes. But
Yeah.
that's kind of how I approach this whole thing. And social media has been big for me. It sounds weird to say, because I've never really just been this huge social media guy before, but now it is like equity. It is social currency, right? And it's important, and especially where we find ourselves now. So yeah, I've been making a pretty big push there, and I've had some help also in that avenue. So
Yeah.
yeah, those are a few avenues that I'm taking.
I think that, I mean, you're right. We live in a world where information and resources are so accessible, and people can choose to be successful this year. Like, if you pick it today and you go online and you spend 10 hours today looking for how to become successful, there are so many tips, there are so many resources, articles, examples, stories that can literally point you in the right direction. So I always go back and I give an example. There were people when the social media was just starting, when the YouTube was just starting, computer just starting, all of that digital world, kind of in the beginning, right? People were saying, well, I can't be successful because, I don't have a good computer, I don't have a good mic, I don't have good internet, like I just can't do it, right? It's just impossible for me. Maybe the people who are a little bit richer can do this and that. Okay. Then now the computers became extremely cheap. I mean, not extremely cheap. There are still people who can buy it.
It's a necessity now. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
necessity now.
but it is, and people still struggle to buy food, and we're talking about computers. But for people who had money before to, $500 before for extra purchases, now $500 can buy them a
Sure.
nice computer. But now the same people are saying that, oh my God, well, there's too much competition. Like, it's so hard to,
Mm,
become
yeah.
successful nowadays because there's too much going on. So when I started the podcast, the first thing everybody told me that I talked to my friends is like, dude, like, there's so many podcasts, and the only
Sure.
guy I
Yeah.
know is Joe Rogan. Like, I don't know anybody else. And I'm like, have you researched? Like, have you went on Google and just Google it, type it. Hey, how many podcasts there is? I did 500,000 podcasts, but that's a lot. So
Sure.
what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to quit? Because 500,000 of those podcasts are also trying. And Joe Rogan tried. He had 100 views on the first video, and now he is one of the richest podcasters in the world. So I think that you're right. There is so much opportunity. And I'm so glad that you're doing it, that you don't care about nothing. You're just enjoying it, going through the ride, riding it out. And I think that's the best part about it, because there is a way. Like I
Sure.
already see like five things that, like, oh my God, if I knew how to sing, if I knew how to, I would do it this way. But I'm just applying this into this thing that I'm doing. Like the
Yeah, it's
same
great.
thought. You know what I
I
mean?
and I think this is really cool. I think it actually redefines what success means. This whole situation, because there are so many people that have access to this now. But I think that anybody who truly believes in what they're doing can be successful on some level, and make it something that it can be their livelihood. And I think
Yeah.
the most important thing, and I keep telling myself this, and I think, for even podcasting and for what you're doing here, man, there are people out there that want to connect, and that your story is going to resonate with them, and your message is going to resonate with them. And really, like, those are the people that you want,
Yeah.
like, I don't think we should stress ourselves out trying to, go out and grab all of these people to, hey, come with me, necessarily, but like, be passionate about your message, be passionate about your story, tell it in a great way. And I think those are going to bring the right people into your atmosphere, into
Yeah.
your universe, and those are the people that are going to stick with you. And those are the people that are ultimately going to help you be successful.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you wanna share your space with those people.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because,
Like,
like, if you're surrounded by like-minded people who believe in you, man, like, let's grab them by the hand, let's lift them up, and take
yeah.
us take them along on the ride.
Yeah, and the people think, like, for example, you're doing music and you say, "Hey, I'm doing music and I want to become a millionaire by the music." Maybe you're not going to become a millionaire, but
I'm not worried about that. Yeah,
maybe you're going to meet people that you're going to start a new journey with them, that it's completely going to shift you from what you started, where you think you are going, and maybe you're going to end up traveling the world with a nice cute band and having the time of your life. Your kids are going to meet 50 different cultures, 50 different countries in a couple of years, and you come home and you're like, there was nothing more worth than this. So, you know, I think that it's a great thing how you're going, because you can't be stuck at one thing, like, this is what I want. And then there's a good quote in life. It says, anything that comes to you, take it. Anything that tries to goes away from you, let it go. And a
sure.
lot of people don't want to let things go. They just want to keep the same thing for over and over and over. And I'm just gonna let it go, man. A lot of good things happen when you just let it go.
Well, and I think there's this false narrative and this idea of what success is, right? And that's why I say we've got to redefine what success is for us. Because I think so many people say, "Oh, well, when I get this many followers, or when I get this famous, or when I get this record deal, or when I win this championship, or when I make this much money, then I'll be satisfied," right? We all know that's not true,
Yeah,
right? You're going to get up there and it's going to be lonely at the top, because that's all you've been thinking about is hitting this arbitrary thing, right? And you've missed everything. You've missed the journey. You've missed everything that is so enriching around it. Um, so I think you're exactly right, man. Like, what is our idea of success? And we can't be fixated on one idea, right? Because this journey could take you anywhere. It could
yeah,
take you in. We need to be open to that, right? Oh, we need to
yeah.
be open to those things happening. And I think when we are, the rewards will be tenfold, and you can't even understand how great it could be.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, I always see people being just stuck and they don't want to let it go. It's like, I have to do this way and there is no other way. And I'm like, dude, just let it go. It's fine.
Sure.
You don't have to do it. Because we are affected by social environment. Like, that's it. All our standards or our expectations, our perspective is majorly built in environment that we live in. And that's a big force that drives us to chase and stick on the same goals or the same things that we've been doing for so long. And if you're not good at it, I mean, I had a great friend. He was I actually had a podcast with him before you, and he's a YouTube star. He has like 1,700,000
Wow.
subscribers. He was a decathlete at my college, and he's very analytical, right? So one day he comes to me and tells me, "Hey, Dino, like, I was calculating my results and I was calculating your results, and I realized that it's going to take me this amount of years with this amount of effort to come to your level. But my goal is to become Olympian, which is going to cost me this much of time, and I'm not going to have this amount of resources. So I don't think I can do it." And then he
Mm,
was studying architecture at that time. So he analytically think again, he was like, well, this is the career. This is what I want to do. This is what makes me happy. I don't like this no more. So he quit it. But he didn't quit it just because of quitting the college, because he had that like emotional drive to quit. No, he calculated it. Then he went to LA. He found a job just to make his living, and he started doing YouTube. And he felt good about it. He was not successful in the beginning, and he told himself, well, I'm not successful, but I actually feel really good, and I have a job that it's, keeping me going, and
hmm
me and my wife, and I'm just going to keep doing it for this amount of time, and if I don't become successful, I'm going to quit it or whatever. But he always thinks analytically about it. And 6 months later, boom, there is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers, and now he
It's
lives a
incredible.
very, very happy lifestyle. But that's what I love about people who analytically make a decision, because sometimes, like we said, people get stuck. Like we seen in the athletes, like people are at the high level and they're so close to becoming professional, but then certain things happen in their life and they just don't want to quit.
Hmm
Dude, it is fine. You will find another thing. Like I
Sure.
understand
Yeah.
mentality of like never give up. That social thing on everywhere where you go, people are never give up, always go to the end. Not necessarily, because you have to look at yourself and
Sure.
calculate the possibility. Is that road the best road to go all in? Or maybe you have to find another road and then use that energy to go that road.
I think that's
So,
a great point, man. I think that's a great point. And like I said earlier in the podcast, this has given us an opportunity to reflect, right? And really look at what we're passionate about and things that we've been interested in. And is this the right road? Where am I? But I think those whispers are always there, like in your soul, right? Those whispers are always there in your soul. Sometimes the noise is too loud on the outside for you to hear it. And I think it's really important sometimes just to take a step back. Even when you get in the midst of all this craziness, when we're going 100 miles an hour, with no COVID, no pandemic, to listen to those things that are speaking to you, right? And not only from an analytical standpoint, which I think, is very important because you got to live and you got to eat and you got to support your family and things like that. But I think there's also this other component that deep inside, something that's speaking to you. And it sounds like, your previous guest, the YouTuber, man, like he did both.
yeah,
And
yeah,
look how it's paying off. I mean, he's following his passion. He made a decision, an analytical decision that, hey, like this is not probably worth my time and energy. I'm going to refocus it. And man, like that's amazing. That's an amazing story. And
yeah.
it's inspiring for me. It is very inspiring for me.
It is, because when I talk to him and I ask him, "Are you a YouTuber?" Or he does MBA, kind of like an MBA analyst videos,
Oh,
kind of
okay. Yeah.
short five
Yeah.
ten videos about interesting things about the players, about the games and stuff like that. And I ask him, "What are you, MBA analyst? Are you YouTuber? Like, what are you?" He says, "I'm a writer."
Awesome.
And that
Awesome.
struck me, because he's not a YouTuber. He's not a MBA. He's a writer. He says, "I sit
That's
down."
just his avenue. That's just his avenue to express it. Yeah. It's
So
great.
So there's a lot of writers today that I actually talked to a couple of writers, and they are telling me, "Oh my God, it's so hard to succeed today because the books are not being, as famous as before, and people are not willing to spend a lot of money on the books as before. It's more kind of digital, and like I'm not sure that writer career is great." And then I look at my guy and I say, I think it's a, I don't want to
Yeah.
use the word, but it is a great career. Like
It just
he
depends
did
on
it.
which avenue you're delivering it, right? Like what avenue are you delivering it to? Because, and I was on a forum earlier today, and we were talking about how these digital platforms are evolving so quickly, right? And it is a mistake for, if you're an artist or anybody that's putting stuff out there, if you're not adjusting and not being flexible enough and being sensitive to what's going on and how people are consuming this entertainment or information, then you're going to get left behind,
Yeah.
and you're not going to be able to do what it is that you want to do, and you want to share those things with people. So find the best avenue that you can share your writing with, or
Hmm.
your voice or your story, like you're doing here. Like, I think this is incredible that you're doing this. And yeah, I think a lot of that is because I know your background a little bit, and I know like where you've come from, and like to
Yeah.
me, it's just incredible, And so, and again, I mean, it's inspiring, but you're finding your avenue to let people hear your story and your voice, which is really cool.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I think that my goal starting this was never to make money out of it. I'm more of a guy that I woke up one day and I told myself, I really want to find people who, once I'm done with the conversation, that I feel more dumber than when I entered the conversation. Like, my goal is actually, I want to leave this conversation that I'm confused a little bit. Like right now, talking with you about the music, it's not something that I couldn't find or couldn't know, but this conversation now made me motivated to go and find different artists that are doing the same thing and going through the same thing. And you mentioned the forums. Now I want to jump on the forum and just see how does that look? Like, who are those people? What do they do? Because I truly believe that there will never be enough knowledge in your lifespan.
And
You
it's
can't.
constantly changing, right? The knowledge that you had yesterday doesn't necessarily apply to today, especially with how quickly things are evolving. So I think these connections and these conversations are more important than ever. And you got to have these conversations, because then you're ahead of the curve a little bit,
Yeah.
and you understand, and you can see the landscape, you can see where we've been, you can see where we're going.
Yeah.
And then you can position yourself in a place where, whether it be music or track and field or whatever you're doing, man, truly get involved, and don't be an elitist, right? Don't be an
Yeah.
elitist like, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm better than, I don't have to
Yeah.
connect with people. Like, don't do that, man. Get in there and grab people by the hand to learn what they're doing. Lift them up, man. Don't be jealous of people's success. Like, if you see them take off, and and I think I was probably guilty of that early on in my career, even as a coach. Like, you just get envious almost sometimes of people's success. You're like, oh man, I want to be there.
Yeah.
And man, you realize over time that the only real avenue to be successful and enjoy it at the same time is to take people along with you and lift them up.
Yeah.
Like, high tide makes all the boats rise.
That's a
And
good one. I
so,
like that. I like that.
yeah, so that's something it's like a mantra that I've really been thinking about a lot and saying to
Yeah.
myself a lot. And I think it's just so important that our mindset is that way.
Yeah, but it's individualistic country. Sorry, my European language,
You're
Serbian
doing great.
language,
You're
and
doing
it's like
great.
it's so hard because like 7 years ago I couldn't even connect three logical sentences. My friends would always be like, Dino, like I have to write down things and then connect the pieces and understand what you're saying. So I appreciate that. I think I'm doing a little bit better than 7 years ago. But
We're getting through the podcast, man, so I understand you.
yeah, 30 minutes in when there is no stuttering so far. But yeah, it's individualistic country, and I get it. People are focused on themselves in this country more than what I have seen in Europe, especially in my country, where we tend to stick together much more than people here. Like here, you're by yourself. I see with the parents, like, hey, this is your thing, this is my thing. Back home is like, no, my dad's thing is my thing. Like my family's money is my money. Like this is what we have. We are a family. Like you can't call yourself family and then you put the boundaries on how much dad has money and how much the kid has money. You can't do it because then you're not I mean, it's very hard to explain. I think that this part is like you are a family, but those too much of those boundaries a little bit scares me because they put an effect on people later on in their life that they feel by themselves. And that's why a lot of teenagers, a lot of adults have issues with anxieties and depression because they were raised from early on that when you have an issue, it is your issue. When you don't have money, you don't have money and you have to ask for it. So I think that, that's a good point what you said. People have to start teaching their, youngsters early on that, we are all in this together and you can reach out to somebody who you think maybe it's a stranger. Like, for example, you are a stranger to me. I know you a little bit, but to a certain degree, you're a stranger to me. But I'm having a conversation with you and I'm open minded. I have boundaries that if you tell me, hey, go and burn yourself, I'm not going to do it. But if you tell me certain things that are positive, I'm going to take your advices. So I believe in those boundaries. And I think that, you should have some, but at least you gotta follow the quote that you said. Because on the end of the day, what's the point of doing anything if it's just you? If you're doing it by
Yeah, it's
yourself.
going to be lonely at the top, you know.
Yeah.
And I think you
Do you
bring up
know
a
what
really,
do you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like,
Well, I know.
was
I
I
think you bring up a great point
eloquent?
about boundaries. Yeah, I think you bring up a great point about boundaries, and I think this is something that probably hinders. And I'm just making this up, but I would say 80% of people that are trying to make it and be successful in any craft. I think people put boundaries on themselves. And I think a lot of that is instilled through family, through friends, unfortunately, being around the wrong people. You were talking about earlier. I want to surround myself with people that talk positively and that inspire me and things like that. Well, I think a lot of it, the way people are raised can really have a deep emotional and psychological effect on their ability to take that next step, right? They can walk to the water, but they won't drink because sometimes I think they feel like they're not worthy, or this is against everything that my family's always said. My family said, hey, like, stay within the boundaries, do the safe thing, don't put yourself out there too far, or you're not going to be able to quote unquote be successful, or you're
Yeah.
going to fall on your face. There's too much risk, things like that. I think we've got to get away from that. We've got to get away from that. I mean, like with my kids, having kids gives me a really different perspective. I have a 4-year-old son, 7-year-old daughter. My daughter
Good
is an
job,
out.
Dad.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm actually, good job, mom. Like she's the one who's the rock star, man. Like, honestly, like, especially when you talk about scheduling, being a track and field coach and being away, man, she's amazing. And just the ideas and how she's instilled into our kids the humility, and it's incredible. Like, love her to death. Like, she's just amazing. She supports me 100% whatever I go for. And my parents were the same way. My
Yeah.
parents didn't put boundaries on me. They didn't say do the safe thing. They saw what I was capable of, and they were just passionate about anything that I was passionate about, which I'm so grateful for now. It's made me the person that I am. It's made me the coach that I am. It's made me the musician that I am. And I'm still working on those things, and I have the freedom to
Yeah.
explore those things. But like you said, a lot of people put boundaries on themselves, and I just think we've got to get away from that. So for my kids, man, we try to just let them explore, and they're going to make mistakes. And we say, that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. What are you learning? How are you growing? Are you enjoying it? Are you having fun? Like, push the boundaries.
Yeah.
Push the boundaries. You're going to make mistakes, and mistakes are okay.
I have one question. This is something that came to my mind yesterday. I listened to a guy on a YouTube accidentally, and he talks about you are good as you are, you are perfect as you are, you are the best just being yourself. And then he talks about the motivation and how you should pursue your goals and how you should, do certain things. And one moment I stopped and I was like, dude, what the hell are you talking? Because this is what triggered me. If if you tell me, Dino, oh my God, you are like the best, you are good as you are like the brightest as you can brightestly shine, but you want to motivate me to become better, let's say in podcast, it's not good, buddy. You're not giving me a good advice
Yeah.
because you're not letting me know my mistakes. But if you look at the things that I do and you say, hey, Dino, like uh, your mic was not loud enough, or your lighting in a room was not good enough, or your haircut was not good enough, or maybe you should think about changing your outfit. You're not telling me that I'm ugly. You're not telling me that I'm not good. You're just helping me out to become better than I was yesterday. So I really think that that's something that I don't know. I want to know your opinion too, but slows down a lot of people who want to shine in the music industry, in the sport industry. Dude, in the sport industry, I seen coaches letting kids know, "Hey, this is good," and they're not even running dorsiflex feet. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" Well, you can't just be rude to them completely. You can't tell. You have to. Your obligation as a coach, as a mentor, as a teacher, as a psychologist, to find the right way to tell the honest thing. But you
So
can't hide it. You know what I mean?
yeah, I think that is a great just observation, and I think it's very complex because I think a lot of that, especially in coaching, is it depends on the type of kid that you're dealing with, and how you approach, say, constructive
Mm-hmm.
criticism, and because some people's backgrounds are much rougher than others. Maybe they don't have the
Mm-hmm.
self confidence to take some of the things a certain way as a coach may deliver it. But I think what you're saying when you talk about this YouTube, you're great and you're wonderful, and I think there's twofold, and I think there's different ways to interpret it, because I personally believe that we're all miracles. Like the fact that we're even alive, the fact that we even
Yeah.
happened, the fact that we even happened and we exist is a miracle. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
how does that even
Yeah,
happen, right? Like, so that's incredible.
absolutely.
And so, like, on some human level, I think we all have to be proud of who we are just because we exist. I think that
Mm-hmm.
there's something there. But then at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, like what I said earlier, if you're going to glorify, and if you're going to, I don't, I want to appreciate my existence by pushing myself to the limit, right? And getting the most out of myself. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm doing myself a disservice if I don't take those compliments, like you said, hey, you're perfect as you are, and things like I'm doing that a disservice if I don't get the most out of myself.
Yeah.
And so I think with that criticism piece, and even being a self critic, it's got to come from a place of love, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like even when you're dealing with athletes, or when you're dealing with a mentor or mentee, and you guys are trying to work at your craft as far as getting better at a podcast, or me trying to get better as a musician, recording artist, performer, things like that, it's much easier to work with someone and we have an understanding that it's coming from a place of love. Like, man, I love you, and so I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to tell you
Yeah.
that this is where you need to get better, in my opinion, because I want to see you succeed. I want to see you get
Yeah.
the most out of yourself. So I
Yeah.
think I think a lot of that is maybe lost in translation, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's how it's interpreted from the person that's delivering it.
And I get it. I mean, I'm always about people being happy. Some people are not driven and they enjoy, let's say, working from 8 to 5 or working just part-time job, living, paying expenses, but having a lot of time with the friends,
Yeah,
or maybe just living on a farm and not need to have money. You have, chickens, you have pigs, you have, deers, you have vegetables, fruits, you have everything, right? So you don't need money. You're fine.
sure.
And I'm perfectly fine with that. The thing that concerns me is that there are two routes. There is a sedentary route and there is a developmental route, right? People who want to develop, they choose the developmental route. That's the route that has a lot of obstacles, that has a lot of issues, it has a lot of stress, and there's quite a bit of things you have to overcome to get as best as you can be. The good thing about the human beings is that when we are challenged, I mean, this is scientifically proven, where our body and our mind is challenged, that's when we thrive. Majority of people, that's the evolution. Like the moment you are in challenging environment, your body starts to adapt to it.
Fight or flight, right? You got those different personalities, fight or flight.
There you go. But you will continuously move. Maybe you're gonna run away. Maybe you're gonna fight against it. But you're going that route to figuring things out. And then there is a sedentary route where you just, this is what it is. I don't have any way, and I don't have any desire of moving forward. This is where I want to be, and that's great. For those people, these type of videos are great, and I think that they should listen it as a meditation to put themselves a knowledge in the brain that they're good enough, and that's fine. But that's not good for the people. And I think it's confusing a lot of young kids who are having that drive and competitiveness and wanting to be better, listening to these soft stories about you're good enough, you don't have to stress yourself, you don't have to go too far to become great, you're great as you are. I don't know, man. Look at every successful person in the world, like really successful. Majority of the people went through hell.
Well, it's like we said earlier, what looks easy to most people is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, it's a lot of, what looks like overnight success. I think a lot of people get this wrong. They're like, oh man, they're so lucky, like they're just so gifted, and they don't understand what looks easy to them. I mean, took a lot of work. I don't care if it's someone singing, like Lady Gaga singing the national anthem. I guarantee you, she works her butt off. You know what I mean? At her craft, and she's gone through challenges and adversity. I don't even really know her. I don't even really know her story, but I know because she's at that level and she's doing something that well at that level. I just know she's put the work in. It doesn't just happen. It does not just happen. And I think that's a message for every single person that listens to this is whatever you want to do, it's not just going to happen. There's no magic fairy that's going to come sweep you off your feet and put you where you want to be. It's not going to happen that way. Yeah. You have the tools. You may not have the tools immediately in front of you, but they're out there. Find a way. Oh, yeah. Find a way.
Yeah. There is always a way. I spoke to one friend of mine due to this pandemic, and I was at the Phoenix at the time, and he told me, man, I can't find a job. It is so hard. And I'm like, how many applications did you fill today? He was like, well, I did like 1 today and like 3 yesterday. I'm like, dude, how many hours in a day did you have? If we go, there's a road, one long road in Phoenix called Indian School Road. It's pretty long. Probably like, I'm just going to wild guess it, 40 miles. I told him, if we start walking at 7 a.m. until 7 p.m., I'm going to find you a job. We go on just this street, not the whole city, just this street. I'm going to find you a job from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. How are you going to do it? We're going to start going and knocking on every single door. Well, I can't do this. I can't do that. This is not good for me. Well, buddy, we have a problem.
I can't, man. That's the destroyer of dreams. I can't. Those two words they destroy dreams, man. They destroy people. So here's a simplified version, I think, of this situation, and in a lot of situations, is you are exactly where you want to be. Period. If you're not where you want, or you think you want to be, no, actually that's where you want to be, because you're not taking these steps to get to where you want to be, right? And so and I think it's just a simplified version. If you're not happy with where you are, well, you got to change something about the way you're approaching it, because and you got to change your way of thinking, because ultimately that's really where you want to be, because you're not getting out of your comfort zone, like you had said earlier, to put yourself in a different place and put your dreams and aspirations out into the universe. I think that's a very important thing, because once you put it out there, like, you have to be held accountable, right? And it's like
a lot of people told me that, you have to be careful because, people are not raised in the same environments. Like, your family did a good job. And the reason why you are as you are today is because, your family helped you out. You were able to develop such a personality in very, very inspiring environment. I was lucky enough to get raised in such an inspiring environment, to have this mindset that is just helping me every day to become better. A lot of people did not have the opportunity, and I agree with that. I do agree with that. But at the same time, the person who develops the desire and the dreams, I'm talking about these people who already got that thing that pops in their head. It's like, oh, this is what I want to become. This is what I want to do. You started it. Right now, you have the information. There is a one thing that is so so powerful as a tool that people still don't get it in 21st century. It's called Google. And
The answer to
it
all of our problems.
it does no, it does magic.
You're right. It does. To some degree, I think it actually hurts us because we stop thinking for
Yeah,
ourselves. It's like, oh, I don't
yeah,
have to retain any information because I can just
yeah,
rely on this thing here. But at the same time, it also creates avenues that never existed before. So I think you're right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But what do you think about what about think you think about music? Like something that concerned me. Maybe I'm a little bit, old soul when it comes to music. Back home we used to listen like a kind of like a folk pop rock music.
Hmm.
It has a lot of melody, nice lyrics, emotional lyrics, you know, powerful stories through the song, powerful groups and bands. And then now I realize that in my country, people are shifting towards the music that's been around in the United States for a very long time. And those are music such as, you know, let's go smoke some weed, chill out, don't worry, drop, excuse my words, but I really want to use this because this is how I define the music that it's going down. It's called drop that kitty down low. And that really scares me because it does a lot of different psychological things to people. Is
Agree.
that
I agree.
becoming a norm that the girls that you are chasing should be dropping their booties down and should be, moving their booties to get your
You
attention.
say you
And
say it so eloquently.
that I mean, it became such a huge focus. And sorry to use these words, but I'm just
It is.
I
It
wonder your
is. You're
opinion.
right.
Like,
No, so I was in a forum earlier today and last night that it's the whole talk was, and I don't know if you know about Clubhouse. The app Clubhouse is an incredible app. You get to connect with people in the industry. There's podcasting on there. I think,
oh
man, if
really?
I got an extra invite, Dino, I'm gonna send you one because it's
Awesome.
an
Yeah.
invite type thing and it's really really cool. So I've been able to
Okay.
connect and interact with people in the music industry that are at the forefront of all of this. And the room that I was in the last couple of days is called Positivity and Music, and we were talking about exactly this topic and talking about the message that's being put out there constantly, and how can we change that narrative and bring it back to something positive, and that almost 90% of what you listen to is you're right. I mean, it glorifies sex and drugs and this kind of like um, I don't know. It's just really not a healthy lifestyle and a healthy outlook. And I think
Yeah.
maybe it's one reason why we've gravitated to this culture of like anxiety and depression and things like that. And I think we just got to get into a space where we're pushing more positivity and more of a positive message and connection and things that aren't so shallow, right?
Yeah.
Things that speak to your soul. And
Yeah.
is that and I think that stuff still exists. I think it's out there. It is out there.
Yeah.
And I am hoping that within the next 5 years in the music industry we can start pushing that message forward and it becomes more mainstream,
Yeah.
because it's not mainstream, like you said. It's not what you hear primarily
Yeah.
on the radio or what's pushed at you. But now, I would encourage anybody listening and anybody that's consuming music, go listen to other artists. There are other artists out there. There are tons of artists doing great stuff. Get on Spotify, get on SoundCloud, or wherever, whatever your avenue is, and go check out some independent artists, some people that are
Yeah.
doing things outside of everything that's pushed at you, right? Because I mean, these record labels
Yeah.
will push all this stuff at you through advertising and through radio, and it's like, oh well, that's what music is, right? Well,
Yeah.
no, there's a whole other world out there of independent artists, and even some mainstream artists that are making really really good stuff and that can speak to your soul and has a positive message.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, music is a big part in our development. I think that it can be very calming, it can be very motivating, uh, but it can also be very damaging. And people don't get it. I seen a lot of people that are into the spiritual world and meditation and yoga and all of these fine crafts of uh, building your building your spirit up, being energetically full with a positivity. And I love that. I think that's a great thing. I think that's new era of lifestyle. But then I see them, the same people that do that, go out on the parties and constantly listen to the same damaging music that is completely opposite of positivity, that is about the guns, about the money, the gold chains, the big this and big that. And I don't know, it's just kind of it's contradictory to what you're trying to do and what you're unconsciously putting in yourself. So
Well,
like you're consciously trying and unconsciously damaging yourself. You know what
I
I
think
mean?
you're right, and I think the meditation piece and how some of those cultures have gravitated and are moved over into our culture. I think people use them as a band-aid. Like
Yeah.
they use them as a temporary fix. It's not really a lifestyle. I mean, if you know someone that's really into like say Buddhist practice or meditation or self-reflection, they live that lifestyle,
Yeah.
and they're not
And you
gonna.
can see it.
Yeah, you can see it, you can feel it, you can recognize it, and they walk that walk 24/7. I feel like
Yeah.
the folks that you're talking about, a lot of times they're missing some pieces, and maybe they're
Yeah.
trying to find it, and maybe meditation will lead to it, or
Yeah.
whatever avenue they're trying to fill themselves up. But I think a lot of times that if they're flipping a coin that has different sides that are that different, then
Yeah.
I think they're missing something there.
Yeah, and I like what you said. The music is there. There's a lot of quality music, a lot of songs that have such a deep stories that could actually help many people. Same as with the books. When it comes,
Yeah,
people
sure.
like to read mainstream books, so they would go and spend $20 on the book that says 100 things that Donald Trump did right, and then there's like a blank pages, and I'm like, sure, like it's something that you're gonna post on your Instagram, but why wouldn't you like use $20 and buy for example, I have this book right here called Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's an amazing book, and there's something you can learn from the book,
Yeah, that's great.
right? So rather than being cool and entertaining, you can actually do something with $20, and I think those are the perfect examples of how people forget about developing themselves and focus on entertaining themselves constantly. And they don't look at the music something that can benefit their health, they can benefit their psychological state. They look at music as entertainment to run away from the issues.
Yeah, that's
So
very
music
good
is,
point. Very good point.
music becomes an exit instead of the entrance
Wow, that's
in a
that's that's
beautiful
powerful right
in
there.
a beautiful
That's
room.
great. That's
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Man, I don't know if you could have said that any better. It for a lot of people it becomes an escape, and that's okay. That is okay. But an escape instead of an entrance, I think that is beautifully spoken. Um, and I think you can use it for both sometimes. I think you can use
yeah,
it for both, but I think there has to be enough balance to where you're exactly right. How are you feeding your soul? Right? What is the material that you're consuming and how it's affecting your psyche and the way you approach your day every day? You said it earlier, surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded, that are pushing you forward. It's the same thing with the way you consume information. And you're
yeah,
just, it's really complex now. And I think that's why we have so many student athletes and kids that are going through depression and anxiety. I've seen it now more than ever.
yeah,
And not just because of the pandemic. I saw it prior to the pandemic, and I
yeah,
think it's because they're inundated with so much different information. Um, and it's almost like sometimes they don't even have a choice of what they're consuming because advertising, targeted ads, the way technology is working and focusing on, uh, young people. I don't know if they know how to protect themselves, from these things that are coming their way. But
We don't.
for someone like me, I didn't grow up with this technology.
Yeah.
I made selective choices on who I hung out with. I made choices on, okay, I know what I'm going to consume. So I see the difference. I see the difference of what's coming at me. Okay, this is negative. I want to swipe this, get this out of here. I want to consume stuff that's going to feed my soul. So, man, I think that is just a great point that you bring up.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I mean, I see it that way. And maybe I'm a little bit, kind of like traditional, old-minded guy, but I'm extremely open-minded. Like, I don't have a perspective. When, a lot of people say, like, what's your perspective? I can't have a perspective because my perspective right now is going to be changed 7 days from now due
Yeah.
to certain environmental stimuli that will affect my perspective to shift.
But you
So
know who
me and
you
you,
are, though. You know who you are deep
I
down.
know.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So, I have this lens through which I see the world, and I see it through the right and wrong. And the right and wrong, in one religion might be right, in different religion or different perspective or different culture might be wrong. So I can't focus necessarily on those things, but what I can focus on the things that are naturally right. Like, for example, being nice to somebody. Try, at least trying. You don't you maybe not, you're not a nice guy. I was never a nice guy. I was a very rude guy, very blunt and honest, but I'm trying to be as best as I can. I'm trying to calm myself down and I'm working on it. So I think I'm doing the right thing when it comes to that. And I think that's the most important thing that, when I have a kids in the future, I'm going to teach them to logically think what's right and what's wrong, to actually understand, like, what do you want to do. So you say you want to be happy, let's write down things on the paper. How are you going to make yourself happy in that certain process? So then we're going to go through the music, we're going to go through the movies, we're going to go through the sounds, to environment, friends and things, so you as a kid can find what are those things that are going to help you, that you're
Yes.
entering the like you said, the beautiful statement, avenue. Like, you want to enter the avenue of positivity and success, right? But that shouldn't be entertaining. That should actually be something that you do, like a full-time thing, a full-time development.
Sure. And
So
I think if, it can be both. It can, if you are feeding your soul, really feeding your soul, it becomes entertainment, like
yes,
it's the deepest form of entertainment. Like if I'm
yeah,
reading something that is really speaking to me, man, you got my
yeah,
attention.
yeah,
It's entertaining and I want to keep coming back to it. So, and I think that's the same thing with your podcast here. I think the same thing with what I do with music. Like if it speaks to you, like that's where that connection is made, and nothing is deeper than that, right? That's what's going to
yeah,
keep people coming back, and they'll be your lifelong fans. And
yeah,
that's all I care about. Like I just want to
yeah.
connect with people and share my message, and you can learn so much from other people too by spreading your story and message, and I think that's what you're doing here, and hopefully something that I can do in music.
Well, I hope so too. I listened to a couple of your videos and songs, and it sounds like, if you focus on it, like, don't get me wrong, it's hard when you go and watch somebody who is new. Our brains are wired to first judge. Like, our brains are to first say, oh my god, like, this is Darren Flores, he's a head coach, what is he doing with guitar, like, why is he trying this?
So
That's
you speak to a really interesting point, and I do want to bring up the fact that I did have to go through some rebranding, and I did it
yeah,
on purpose because of this exact thing. Because my when you like I say when you previously go to my social media page, like you said, like this is a coach. Why does he have a guitar? It's confusing, right? So
yeah,
I actually spoke to someone about this, and I think someone who it came from a place of love. They were like, "Man, you need to rebrand because when people come to you, they see. Oh, and if you search on Google, you see coach, right? You see coach, and then you see some music. So it's like, well, what is it? Right.
yeah,
So I came up with a different brand. I use the name Rye Wolf as my stage name.
mm-hmm.
And really what I did is I flipped my last name backwards, right, and changed it up. But I did that on purpose with intent, so I could, like, listen. This is my focus here. and then with who I am, it doesn't necessarily define who I am, but it's something that I'm
Yeah.
expressing my emotions through. And then I can be a coach on this side of things. And so
Yeah.
I think personally, when I got that advice, I took it to heart, and I was like, man, that is so right. And
Yeah.
so now I think it's probably, I mean, for people that know me, right, it's always gonna be like, hey, there's a coach. What's he doing?
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
for people that come now for the first time, they're like, oh, we know exactly what he does, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's a
Yeah.
very important thing for anyone who's trying to get into to entertainment. Like, have your brand, right, and make it clear, make it clear.
Yeah, you're right, and I think that even when I'm thinking now about doing the podcast, I mean, right now I'm in the process of recording it, and pretty soon I'm going to be publishing it. There's always that back thought about what are your closest one going to think, and the closest ones are going to judge you the most.
Well, I think the important thing to keep in mind is don't care. Don't care what they
Exactly.
think. Like, this is your thing, man. Like, do
Yeah.
it. Just go for
Yeah.
it. And I think that's what we talked about as far as boundaries. That's what holds people back, because you think, oh man, what are the people closest to me gonna think? Like, they're gonna doubt me. They're gonna think I can't do this because I've been a decathlete my whole life. Like,
Yeah.
they don't know this side of me. Well, who cares? Who
Who
cares, man?
cares?
This is what feeds your soul. You want to do it. You know you're good at it. You know you love it, man. Go for it.
Yeah. And if I fail, and if you fail, well, you know that you just failed. That's fine.
There is no
But
failure. There's just learning, right? You're just going to learn.
exactly.
You're going to learn. And if you really want to do it, you're going to get better at it and better at it. And if you define
Yeah.
success as what we had talked about, and not some arbitrary, like, I got to get to a million views on this, or a million streams on this song, like, I'm not worried about that, man. I just want to do what I love and appreciate it every day and get better at it every day. And wherever that takes me, okay, I'll be fine.
So now with the COVID and so many theories of what's going to happen, and vaccines and chips and aliens, and dude, there is so much thing going on that when it comes to music, I'm just wondering, old style fashion, nice folk pop country concert where you can go and sing along. Like,
When's that going
is
to
that
happen?
thing that exactly like I've been listening to my favorite artists from Serbia and Croatia and Bosnia, and I've been to a couple of those concerts and I loved it. I mean, those are such a powerful and emotional concert. Like, you sing every song, you scream, like
the
you don't
memories the
dance,
memories that you have, and just, oh, it's just incredible, right? The experience.
and it's like, what's gonna happen to that? Like, that's what scares me. Like, you being an artist right now, and let's say that you become more and more successful, are you gonna have availability to feel what one of these artists felt in a full bars of people? I
See,
don't, you
that's a
know what
good
I mean?
question,
Like,
Dino, because I've been there. I've been on a stage in front of thousands of people. And
really?
this is when I first started, when I was first starting. I toured around the
Wow, I
country.
didn't I didn't know that.
Yeah, I played the college scene. I toured across the United States. I had a band. I mean, I've done these things, and I know what that feels like. I know what that feels like. And I think it's just changing. Like, and we have no idea what the future holds, right? We would love to get to that point sometime. But I think really right now it's more about one-on-one connection. One-on-one connection. Like, how are you connecting with an individual? And, if I'm going to pop on Instagram and start playing some live songs, which is really something new to me. And, it's weird because you can't directly interact with the audience. That there's no like nonverbal cues that you're getting back and feedback. But I think it's really just that one-on-one connection.
Yeah.
And I found myself having conversations with people that I don't even know, really, and getting to know them. And they'll send me a message, say, hey, I really appreciate this song you put out. Man, it spoke to me. I love it. I've been listening to it. And just start a conversation, get to know them. Like, hey, how's this song speaking to you? And just create that like one-on-one connection right now. For me, that's that's the best avenue. Well, I hope we get back to concerts, man. I hope so. I
I
love
hope so
going,
too.
and man, I've had some incredible experiences with other people, friends, family, and sharing that like space. And I hope we get back to it, but for the time being, man, and just try to connect any way I can.
Yeah. Do you think the aliens are gonna show up?
I think they're already here.
You think so?
Aren't you one?
I don't know, man.
Nah,
I
man.
don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
Couple of my friends ask me that, but I don't know. I have this pyramid, and I'm hoping that it's producing enough energy
I love
as
it.
they say.
I love it.
But I'm really interested. Are they gonna show up or not one day? Just
Would it
hey,
surprise you if they did? It wouldn't surprise me, man.
no, it wouldn't. It just when I look at the humanity, like I understand history. Like I like to read a little bit about the history, and there's too many blanks. Too many blanks, and anything that I look at, like I'm not one of those people. I don't believe in this and I believe in this. I believe in all of that. All of that has some truth, and I'm just like there's too many not knowing areas. Like if you look back in our history and how we are, there's a lot of missing pieces. There's a lot of things that you can't find about how we ended up here, why we ended up here, why are we who
Who
we are.
knows? Who knows?
So it's like I'm always thinking that a lot of things in our life are so arbitrary, like sports. It's a great tool when you're young to go and learn, the develop as an athlete, because I think it stimulates the brain. It brings you a lot of health benefits more than it takes away. So I think the sport is a great for that. But then when I look at the people who are high in the sports and just being overly focused on themselves and just me, and every interview is the same. It's like, oh, I give my best and stuff like that. It's arbitrary. Like if anything happens to a planet, for example, a basketball player, you ain't gonna be shooting hoops. You're gonna have to shoot spaceships or aliens, and you ain't gonna be doing that with the ball. You know what I mean?
Well, I think
So
we're just a small speck of
yeah,
time. I mean, to be honest, we're
yeah,
at the same time I say we're a miracle that we're even existing. I mean, to be honest,
yeah,
in the grand scheme of things, like we're just a small piece of the puzzle, very very small piece. And so I'm humbled,
yeah.
right? I'm humbled and grateful at the same time that I get to be a part of it. And I
Would
think
you
just have that
agree?
perspective.
What did you say? Sorry, I thought
I
you
just think
stopped.
it's important to have that perspective.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I have one question for you. And I think I'm going to ask any of my guests the same question. Do you think that intelligence, all type of intelligence, emotional, social, whatever it is, intelligence as a whole, is the most important thing that one human being should have and should focus on to to develop it as high as possible, to send more intelligence into their offspring so they can become even more intelligent, so that their offsprings can become even more intelligent? Would you agree that that's like the number one and the only thing in sake of a long term development of our civilization as a humanity?
Yeah, that's a very complex question. I think that, like you said, there's all kinds of intelligence, right? Emotional,
Yeah.
social. Uh, I mean, I think to try to achieve the highest level of self, right? We have to be constantly working on that aspect of life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's hard for me, man. I have a hard time shutting it off. Yeah, I do, man. I'm so obsessed with this idea of bettering my understanding of myself and my surroundings and others and the way we relate to each other. And I do think is important to turn that off every once in a while. Otherwise, you just
Yeah.
become crazy and you can't
Yeah.
necessarily enjoy the ride. But yeah, okay. So Dino, what I would say is I think that is hugely, hugely important. But I also think equally important is our ability to connect with the other people that we exist with.
But that's also part of intelligence.
Right.
Like that's a social
Social
intelligence. You can,
intelligence. Yeah. Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Because here's the thing, like if intelligence gets you to the point where you can feel other people's energy, you're
Yes.
entering a different dimension, right? But that's intelligence. Like
You're
that's a
right.
new
You're
level
right.
of intelligence. Do you know what I mean?
You're right.
So
You're right.
that's why I always wonder if that intelligence is the most important thing, because everything else becomes arbitrary if you think about where we're going to be as a planet 100 years from now, and then 500 years from now, thousands years from now. Like if you just close your eyes and dream about it, then a lot of things that we do today are going to become same as me and you looking at the gladiators back in the day and be like, holy moly, like why would they kill each other?
Yeah.
Like there's so much, like the
Yeah.
world was so big, they could have started a city in a different woods and they would be just fine, but somebody ruled them over and told them, hey, you have to fight or you're gonna
Yeah.
be killed. So that's how I look in the future, and I'm like, if they had a possibility of being more intelligent, they wouldn't be in that
You're
situation.
exactly
But
right.
yeah,
You're exactly right. I think that's a great point, man. I think too many people just get comfortable not challenging themselves. You know,
yeah,
they'd rather go to their job and go through the motions, and then when they get home and don't really invest in themselves, they're just I don't know, man. I know people like that. I don't
yeah,
associate with people like that. Like I don't
yeah,
surround myself with people like that. Um, so yeah, if you're not working on yourself and your ability to understand, our surroundings, our existence, our emotional intelligence, our social intelligence, and how to connect with others, like what are you doing?
yeah,
You're not expressing yourself to the fullest. Like it's a waste of time. It's a waste of life. Like don't waste this life. Like don't waste that. You have this
yeah,
opportunity to use this vessel, and it is the single most important thing that we're doing here.
yeah. I think that's great. So amazing, amazing stuff being said in this podcast.
Oh, it's
I
been
do
it's been
love
so
it.
great. Yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah, I think we touched a couple of bit, but that we can save a lot of questions that I had for NCAA. And I think that's like a 2 hour podcast of a lot of things that really interests me when it comes to what's happening in NCAA and the
Oh, that's
controversies
yeah, that's
between amateurism and professionalism, which blows my mind. And there is so much of inequalities that should be inequal, and equality that should be equal. And there's so much about it, and I wonder that one day we do a podcast again
I think we should.
and we talk more about these things, because I think I think that people would want to hear from a coach from a first perspective who've been a head coach for quite some time, your opinion. And yeah, man, I think at some point we got to do this podcast again and,
Yeah, we
and
can do
dig
a
into that.
sequel. We can do a sequel, and I have a
Yeah,
lot of opinions about that stuff. And I've been fortunate, and I'll just go ahead and have a plug here. But I'm a co-producer on the Off Track podcast with Matt Eshy and a whole panel of other great coaches that become really good friends. And we talk about these issues every week. And I would love to come back, Dino, on this podcast and unpack some of how I feel the NCAA is headed,
yeah,
and how like like you talk about amateurism, collegiate athletics. I think the landscape is going to change greatly in the next 5 to 10 years.
yeah,
It already has changed a lot, but
yeah.
I would love to come back anytime and talk about that.
Okay, awesome, man. Well, I think that was a good podcast. I really appreciate you being here. I really didn't know what to expect. I know you for quite short of a time to actually expect. And the thing that I love about you is that you're in a stage of your life that you're not at that level of music where people like, oh my god, like have you heard about Darren Flowers? Like when we talk about the volume of people, but you have a very how you say the word eloquent way of explaining how that process looks, and you are full of understanding what's coming
Hmm.
and how hard it's going to be. And
Sure.
I think that's the beautiful part, to listen. And I always say it's easy for me to talk with somebody who is famous and kind of bring me the highlights of their career. But this is the part that I think the most of the people should listen to. And I always say sometimes it's more beneficial to listen and take advices from a person who is on the road than on the person who is already at the finish line, because the person on the road is going to be very honest and very blunt and have a probably a little bit detailed insights of what's going
Sure.
on.
And I think a lot of times what you will find, and they may not admit it, but a lot of people that are at that highest level of success have been exactly where I am, and have that same approach, like, and I know some of those people that are at the highest level. And
Yeah.
to be honest, although I think some of them they made connections and have some luck, I think is part of it. But at the same time, there are a lot of people out there that they're just mastering their craft, you man, and they appreciate where they're at, and they just happen to, because they're good people and they do right by people, they've gotten to where they've gotten.
Yeah.
And so that's just where I want to keep my focus, and wherever that gets me, I'll be fine with.
That's great, man. Well, thank you one more time
You
for
bet.
coming in.
I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. And good luck with the music. Good luck with the coaching and this crazy upcoming year. And
You too, man.
yeah,
You
man.
too. Good to connect here.
Alrighty.
All right.
Fingers crossed, man.